Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lisa Lang. I'm the founder of Electrocouture and the Powerhouse. I'm not only going to talk about fashion, I'm going to talk about technology, about how we explore mass, and how do you start a business without having ever VC funding. But also I want to take you a little bit on my journey, starting with going to the MBA course of Sven Ripsas and dropping out. And it was all your fault, because you made me aware of in that course that I can be an entrepreneur, and at the moment where I had that realization, I had to do it, and I didn't have time to study anymore because I needed my money and my time for building a business. So here's the explanation. Goodie. So, okay, I'm also a huge history nerd, so that means, like, you know, when I start to research, I actually go into history, and I was like, okay, whoops, yes. Yeah. So we're talking about fashion technology. Question is, like, what is actually fashion technology? If you go to Wikipedia, there's not a definition yet. I'm working on that. But the fact is that, you know, it's actually nothing new. I went to London to the Victorian Library and went into the archive, and I found a really amazing story. Unfortunately, there's not a YouTube video of that. But there was a story from a French clockmaker in 1857 who constructed dresses for dancers with tiny little light bulbs. That was before LEDs and power banks. And they had a huge show, and it lasted for 20 minutes. Nobody got electrocuted, according to the news article. But it was like, okay, was awesome. This was high-end tech, but it was beautiful, but it was made by a clockmaker, by an electric engineer, right? So I dug a little bit deeper, and I found these amazing jewelry pieces. So these are hat pins. You know, there was a time where women were wearing huge hats, and they had to fix them to their huge hair. In that time, they actually made mechanical hat pins, so that a little rabbit was drumming, was playing on a drum. And that little skull, so, like, I made that picture, it's because it actually still exists. I couldn't get it to work, but it was still there. So it was like moving its jar. It was like, isn't that amazing? Like, you know, so that's like cool. Like, why don't we have something like that yet? Like, I saw there was like this necklace with this bird, and he was moving his head, flapping his wings. It was all mechanical engineering. I was like, oh, awesome. And then I was like, my question was like, okay, good. Like, what are we actually going to wear in 100 of years? Because, like, fashion hasn't been like that innovative in a very long time. There is a YouTube video for that if you want to Google for it, because I don't have time to play it. Vogue US, the fashion magazine, they ask artists to think about, it was around the 1920s, they ask artists, can you please imagine what are we going to wear in 2000? And that was one of the designs. So you can see, this was like a mobile phone, was sitting here. There was the antenna for it as a head. And the belt was a mobile radio. Right? It looks like we all have that. It looks a little bit different, but we have that. That's why I tell all of my fashion designers, by the way, also to watch a lot of science fiction, because, like, you know, who invented the iPad first? So there was like the journey, and like I dug deeper and said, like, okay, who were actually like the really first one fashion tech designer? Because what is actually fashion tech? It's wearable function. You know, that's like the thing. It's like you know, our clothes are dumb. They cover us, that's it. So, and then I got slightly obsessed with the story of Coco Chanel. Because what she actually did was she added pockets to a jacket, to a woman's jacket. It was a big revolution because back then, women didn't have pockets. They had handbags. Handbags disabled them, so they didn't have their hands free. And she put pockets on the jacket. It was a wearable function. Also, she was a smoker and she needed her cigarettes. You know. Also, by the way, when she started, it was after the war, there was not a lot of material left. So she actually used jersey, stretched jersey. All of you wearing it now, it's like really nice. That material only was used for men's underwear. But she had nothing else, so she used that and threw away the corsets. So this is about thinking and like solving a problem. This is about, clothes are there to actually support us, not to hinder us. Yeah, and then I found this, and I was like, what is a bra maker doing at NASA? Well, here's the thing. The spacesuit needed seams which were super strong and flexible at the same time. There was only one person who could do something like that, a bra maker. So I thought, okay, good. So these are all of the amazing stories from the past. So that means like people from a complete different industry go in a different industry to solve a problem. Okay, so like, yeah, when that always happened, like, why are we not doing that now? Also like, hey, cool, designers. Yeah, that's your job now, right? To like make something awesome, but you still can work with hardware. And then I looked like into the technology sector and like, okay, so what are you guys doing with, technology? That. So for Steve Mann is actually kind of like the inspirator of Google Glasses. He is the gentleman on the very left. This is not a fake picture, this is real. And so what they did back then was they just took all of the technology they had around them and started to wear them. Fashion obviously was like a secondary consideration. But it was very, very function driven. It's like, okay, that is the thing. It's like, so you all have the same, you're trying to solve the same problem. You just have like different approaches. Well, imagine if you get the bra makers and the Coco Chanels together with these guys. I was like, okay, and that was the point where like, yeah, but nobody is doing that. But I wanted, because I was back then working in technology and I love fashion. I'm a software engineer and I wanted to look pretty and smart at the same time. And there was nothing. And then I went to the MBA and I was like, okay, well, does it now mean I have to do it myself? And I did. So one of the first products I made was intelligence jewelry, but I used the intelligence with light, because light is very beautiful. Just remember when you go in Christmas and have all of like the lights, it's, it touches your heart, but at the same time, light is super smart. So got inspired a lot by Art Deco necklaces, because Art Deco is mathematics and sexy. It calms down your brain because it's pure symmetry. I didn't have money for precious metals or diamonds. And I was like, why do we like diamonds? Because they sparkle. I was like, oh, but I have LEDs and a laser cutter. And I started to make this, and I actually, to be honest, I only made this for myself because I thought I'm the only nerd out there who wants this. And I started to wear it, and the kind of thing is like when you glow in the dark, is that people find you. The other thing also what I found out, the thing with fashion, it's very emotional. If there's something you really want, price doesn't matter. And I had a lot of women coming to me, the few women who were in the room when I went to technology events, and said like, I want this, make this for me. I don't care about the price. And I was like, okay, I have to kind of like figure out how to do that. And then I figured it out, and I was like, okay, good. So, and I put up the price again and again, the second batch and the third batch, and then I was like, oh, I really have to quit my job because maybe there's something happening. In the meantime, I made a prototype piece. This is Rainbow Sparkles. Because I was pushing the rainbow and wearable LED thing. So this is a jacket which has integrated LEDs. They were huge back then. And since I'm a software engineer, I was like, okay, like how about we make it interactive? So this jacket has its own telephone number. You can send it a text message and say like #pink, #sparkle, and then it sparkles in pink LEDs lights. So it's like, okay, and it was actually just like a thing like if I can do that, working with text messaging APIs, and I was like, okay, like how can you make it look this sexy? I was like, okay, that was my answer. And then I realized it's like, okay, so I was wearing this jacket and people loved because there was no digital barrier. Everybody, even my grandma, can write a text message. and a fascination about that you can influence something immediately. At the same time, I didn't have problem with like data privacy, because like what's the worst thing what somebody can do to me? Blue. And that was my talking piece, and the other thing was my business piece, and I was like, okay, goody. I obviously touched something. There is something happening also, knowing from history, something has been happening. So what I'm going to do with this? I didn't have the money to like become the new Coco Chanel, also not the time, but I don't want it to wait. And then I read the biography of Edwin Land, by the way, for everyone who like loved Steve Jobs' books and history and quotes. Edwin Land, the inventor of Polaroid, is actually a dude who inspired Steve Jobs. And the whole thing, like, you know, fake it until you make it, is actually from him and not from Steve Jobs, by the way. Highly recommend, read the books of him, he's really awesome. So I was like, okay, good, I have to find a way how to get into this, how to make money with this, and you know, also of course educating people that you know technology can be beautiful and smart, and it's not a bad thing. So in 2015, IBM invited me to speak at a conference about fashion tech, and then they wanted to go really into fashion tech, but I didn't know how, and I was like, yeah, but you know, tech and stuff, and like, yeah, but we don't know fashion. And I was like, okay. And because they saw my rainbow jacket, because people kind of took photos of it a lot and played with it because it was glowing and being interactive, and I got a lot of text messages. So they were like, okay, like how can we just, you know, make this project happen? And I was like, well, so we can take the concept of rainbow sparkles and just like add like an emotional, you know, lever to it. Also, the way how I programmed it is actually also works on hashtags, so like Twitter. I made it on text message first, but you know. So, and then in 2016, Marchese and IBM collaborated and made this dress. It was like on the Met Gala in New York. It has RGB LEDs in the flowers, and it runs on Twitter hashtags. And I was like, oh, awesome. But on the same time, I was like, okay, good. You know, I could have never done that because, you know, it took Marchese a little bit of time and $1 or $2 to actually get to that brand value. Same with like IBM. I was like, oh, okay, good. But I can be an enabler because like I'm the one who has the idea, and it's totally fine that other people do that. And the most important thing is like that people see these stories. This is awesome. You know, get the good guy, the big guys, you know, to be, you know, your marketing tool also. And also there's the virtual, on the other side, things take time, and sometimes karma comes back, and that was in form of Marlene Dietrich. Who would have known? 2017, Arte, the television channel, came to us and said like, look, you know, 2017 is the 25th death anniversary of Marlene Dietrich. We found letters from her in her archive where she, in 1958, described that she wanted to have a glowing, interactive dress for her Las Vegas show. And I died. I was like, oh my God. And they were like, yeah, you know, you went to like to fashion designers, to Wolfgang Johm and something like that. And they said like, yeah, awesome, but we can't do it. And they got really nervous and like, oh, you know, we're making this documentary, we have the movie production, we have the budget and whatsoever, but nobody can make this dress. And I was like, I can. So we read those letters, and Marlene, she lived with us for many months because, you know, she gave us very strong instructions how to make this dress. It had to have a lot of flowers. It either had to be yellow or pink. We went for pink. It had to be a lot of sparkles, a lot of Swarovski crystals. It had to be glowing, and it had to be interactive. And we were like, contact to thread, LEDs, Bluetooth connection, thank you very much. There is, by the way, you can watch the entire documentary from Arte still on Deutsche Welle. So if you Google Marlene's last dress or Marlene letztes Kleid, you can still see the documentary, but that was for Electro Couture, the breakthrough, because there was a story, there was an emotional story. In the meantime, other things happen. And I was like, okay, good. So the glowing thing is that, but like, what else? Because in the meantime, the result of Marlene was like, the workwear protection people came to us, and I was like, what? It's like, yeah, okay, did you actually know that like a lot of people, construction workers, still die or get injured because you can't see them? I was like, okay, good, well, that's a weird journey, but like, let's do that. Follow the money and such. So I went like into this whole thing. It's like, okay, workwear, cool shit, right? So there was the story about Helly Hansen, who started in protective gear. They didn't do anything in ready to wear, but then hip hop guys from the Bronx in the 80s took these garments and made them cool. And that wasn't an influencer paid campaign. They just did it. Helly Hansen would have never thought about that, but they made it cool, and now they have ready to wear. So I was like, okay, so there is like something else, because like fashion also, of course, is workwear. By the way, security shoes for women is a huge topic. Problems to be solved. The other thing also is like you might have noticed that like sport and fashion kind of like intertwined in the last years. Well, why do you think? Because sport is function-driven. Sneakers, comfortable clothes. We want to go on yoga, want to go to work, and want to go to party. And sport is really doing that now, right? So that's why, same for streetwear, because you are on the front, solving problems. Yeah. So in the high luxury people, they are meeting in the middle. So that's what's happening in fashion at the moment. And I was like, okay, there are so many ideas out there. This is Pauline van Dong in 2015, solar sweater, wearable, flexible solar panels to charge your phone. Who wouldn't want that? And it looks pretty. Next thing, Ralph Lauren, 2015, sports jacket with measuring pulse, measuring your heartbeat, $800. And then Google Shakar came in, and that was like a big deal. So Google, a software company, teamed up with Levi's, a textile company, and they made a smart bicycle jacket. And the world stopped. I was like, yeah, okay, good. Technically speaking, for the techies out there, this is very, very boring. It's conductive thread and a Bluetooth connection. Yawn, I know. Everybody can do that. And that was the point where also the second company, Powerhouse, was born, because all of a sudden the big companies came to us and said that we know we have to do this and we have no idea how. I was like, well, interdisciplinary approach. That means like you fashion designer have to work with electricians, and you electricians have to talk with designers. And they were all scared. And I was like, okay, good. So like we are the people who bring them together. Awesome, because we do everything at the same time, because for us, it makes sense. So that was like an interesting journey. And so pretty much like what you see, like everything in that space, what comes out, we kind of have something to do with it. I can't talk about it. I have to sign a lot of NDAs. So the next big step, just by the way, because I want you not to sleep tonight, because this is a very exciting topic, and also, by the way, there are a lot of possibilities in this field, because when two industries collide, there are a lot of blank spaces which have to be filled and problems have to be solved. So, yeah, we're going to space for holidays. Yes, have you thought about it? What we're going to wear? Yeah, well, think about it. So the interesting thing is like that motor bicycle gear makers, they are making those clothes, right? Because it's protective gear. And think about the bra maker. This happened a few weeks ago. So shape-shifting technology in bras. Wow. The thing is, the innovation actually always came from astronauts, a stretch material, that was made for astronauts, not for spandex. So this is now happening. Is like that again. We are going, and we have innovators, we have material science, and it now comes back into fashion, because fashion doesn't know what to do anymore. And there's a huge pressure, and especially the big companies who say like we're not fast enough. What shall we do? And it's a huge opportunity for the small Davids to come in and say like, well, we have a completely different approach. Let's just, find other solutions. Another point, this is all about for you to inspire. So my husband is a mobility expert, and I know far too much about cars. And he told me a story. It's like, did you actually know that the first electric cars were mainly made for women? Because that was back in the time when those cars, like you had to start them like this. You know, a woman couldn't do that. So the electric cars were especially made for that. This is not a fake, this is like real. This is like a real advertisement from Baker Electric Vehicles. And I was like, okay, good. So what it made it with me in my weird head, I was like, okay, so everybody is talking about mobility, everybody is talking about space. Can we please, again, talk about it? What are we going to wear? Nobody? Okay, then I have to do it, fine. So we started a few weeks ago to publish our Future Fashion Mobility Trend Report. It's on our website, thepowerhouse.group. Please read it. It's very inspiring. One of those things also is like, you know, e-bikes. We have a big problem. The increase of accidents on e-bikes because they're too fast, because we don't know how to race fast bicycles. There are a lot of accidents. There is no protective gear. The answer to that is material science, because you can't look like a Michelin man from like a motorbike protective gear. Nobody would wear that. Also wouldn't look chic. That's a problem to solve. Highly, you know, read a lot of accident reports. There are problems to be solved. And now I'm going a little bit crazy because I've been asked to go as crazy as I can as possible. The next big thing, also one of our companies, biotechnology. 3 years ago, a fashion student in London took hair from Alexander McQueen. He is a dead fashion designer, extracted the DNA, grew, based on the DNA, leather in the lab, made handbags out of it and tried to sell it. True story, you can Google it. But that shows like, okay, what is that? What does that mean? It means that society has to think about that. What happens when you digitize everything, also in the age of Internet of Things? Your jacket will be a thing. What is when your next jacket gets hacked? You know, remember what happened with Tesla? What is the cybersecurity law for smart shoes, your smart handbag? What if somebody takes your DNA, grows something out of it, makes a new product and sells it? There is no law for it who can protect you. It's similar laws, but like not specifically for that. Yeah, and then also, of course, the next thing is everything goes under the skin. So sorry for all of the Meditech wearable technology people. All of that will go underneath the skin because it's already possible. On the left side is a project from MIT. So this is like a conductive tattoo. And on the right side is an example from an artist who says, why do we need shoes? Shall we just like go in biotech and just grow like, you know, a better foot for us so we can actually, you know, so we don't need shoes at all? I mean, come on, people, it's actually possible. It's absolutely possible. But the thing is, like, we have to talk about it. Why are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? Who's going to do that? And how we are going to, like, to control and measure and innovate on that. Because there's one thing, and it doesn't matter what kind of technology we're going to do, like when the Flugtaxis come and whatsoever, and the rockets to Mars. There's one thing what is sure for certain. We need to cover ourselves somehow. If it's like electric engineering jacket, if it's exoskeleton, or is it biotechnology skin. But that is something which is a big problem, and there are so many opportunities and so many companies to be built. I can't do it on my own, please help me. And also I'm here to be a good sparring partner, because nobody can tell you if you're wrong or right, because when you're working on the future, it's always your truth, because you're the one who has to make it. Thank you very much.